What's happening? I want to welcome you to From Half Court for today, Thursday, March 9th, 2023. I'm your host, Sean Murphy. Today, we got a lot to talk about in the world of Detroit basketball, and specifically the fact that we have a couple players that are already going to be likely shut down for the season, the fact that the season ends a month from today. We're going to look at James Wiseman's performance as a Piston so far, and what is the Pistons' goal for this final month? Where are their eyes set? We'll talk about that and more. But first, if you like this video, be sure you like it down below. Be sure you subscribe to the channel and share with your friends and join in the conversation down in the comment section. But also, if you haven't already, be sure you go and check out the podcast we did with Detroit Pistons beat writer Mike Curtis of the Detroit News yesterday. It was a really good conversation. Mike's one of my favorite people in the beat and just one of my favorite people in general. So it was a really fun time having him on, and we're going to have James Edwards III on next week as well. So be sure you are tuned in for that. But with that, let's talk basketball, man, because hitting the fan, the Detroit Pistons, man, the injury bug just keeps hitting this team, and it does so even in the final month of the season. According to Shams Charania, yesterday we got the report that Bojan Bogdanovic is likely going to miss the rest of the season, or that he could possibly miss the rest of the season due to an Achilles injury. I'm just going to tell you right now, he's going to be shut down for the rest of the season because there's no reason for him to play, especially if he's feeling any form of injury. I mean, the Pistons at this point only have 15 wins. You know, their season ended months ago when Cade Cunningham went down for the count. At this point, they're well securing their spot at potentially having the number one odds to land Victor Wembanyama in this upcoming year's draft. There's no reason for Bojan to go out and play because there's nothing for him to prove. He can still be with the team. He can still be around the guys. He can still lend his support, but there's no reason to risk any of your aspirations going forward and into the future with him getting on the court. And even worse for the Pistons, Hamidou Diallo is out for the rest of the season as well. Number one, this could potentially be Hamidou Diallo's final game as a Piston because Hamidou Diallo is an unrestricted free agent in this upcoming free agency class. And if we talk about some of the acquisitions that Troy Weaver has made, and we talk about some of the projects that we have taken on in Detroit, Hamidou Diallo has been one of the most successful, especially from a player development standpoint. You look at the player that he was when he came into Detroit versus the player that he is now. If you look at the statistics, a lot of the things are going to look similar, but the truth of the matter is Hamidou brings a lot more energy on the defensive end. He's able to bring impact on that end specifically. He's shooting less from beyond the arc, which is actually helping his efficiency. He's finding the spots that he can actually make an impact on the offensive end, and as a result, we're seeing Hamidou Diallo thrive. However, and the reality of it is the Pistons are going to have money for the first time in quite a while this upcoming offseason. They're going to have flexibility, which is exactly what Troy Weaver's been building towards. And if you talk about the wing position, which is where the Pistons need to grow and develop and get talent the most, that's probably our least secure spot on the roster. So as far as with Hamidou's future, I certainly think with the level of energy that he brings in the amount that he has grown and developed as a person, but also as a player, I think there's a lot of reason for the Pistons to consider bringing Hamidou Diallo back. But again, the reality of it is there are also better options out there. If the Pistons can go land a guy like a Cam Thompson and also, bolster their bench and get some certain depth, I mean, the reality of it is Troy Weaver is going to turn every stone. And so with Hamidou Diallo, his future is going to be uncertain. We might have seen his last action in a Pistons uniform, which is really unfortunate because if you talk about the young guys and especially like the bench rotation players that are the most fun to watch, Hamidou Diallo is the list because he immediately brings energy every single night he steps on the court. He causes turnovers. He makes players uncomfortable. He gets out in the fast break. He can dunk. He can really get up there, especially with this hops. I mean, Hamidou Diallo is just a baller, man. So just from a fan perspective, it's going to be really a bummer to watch this team without him going down the stretch for the rest of this season. However, that kind of begs the question of who else could we see shut down? Who else could we see return to the lineup? Like, for example, there's a month left in the season. Should the Pistons bring back Jalen Duren? Or should they shut him down for the rest of the season, allow him to go into the offseason healthy? Because on one hand, it would be really beneficial for Jalen Duren to get some run alongside James Wiseman and Marvin Bagley. Two guys, Wiseman in particular, who he hasn't played with at all. And the Pistons are suddenly very interested to see how those two pair together on the court. But in addition, a guy like Marvin Bagley that you really hardly played with at all because he was in and out of the lineup. But in addition, he is a 19-year-old guy. He needs as many minutes as you can get. And you're not going to have NBA action again until October. But at the same time, do you really want him to go out and worsen this injury and play meaningless basketball and potentially screw up the long-term investment that you have in Jalen Duren? And so that's going to be the interesting thing that's going to happen there. And I mean, also they face the same thing with Isaiah Stewart. I mean, folks, we are just in that time of the season where, more and more guys from the end of the bench are going to get opportunities. Guys like RJ Hampton, who over the last few games, listen, I still don't think RJ Hampton has a spot in Detroit beyond this season. I think RJ Hampton is currently auditioning for his NBA career, potentially, whether it's, another spot with another rebuilding or developing team next season, or if it's potentially a two-way contract with another team as well. That definitely is a window that I could see for RJ Hampton as well. But at the same time, if he keeps playing really hard on the defensive end and makes effort plays on the other side of the basketball, then he could potentially open himself a role somewhere in the league, because RJ Hampton has all the athletic gifts. It's really just what's his role? What is his purpose? What is the thing that's going to get him minutes on the court on a night-to-night basis? And let's be honest, guys, in his first few games in Detroit, he looked lost, especially in those first two. I mean, granted, it's his first games in a Pistons uniform. You're going to be figuring things out on the fly, but at the same time, it's not like schematically things are a whole lot different from one to other team in the NBA, especially in the modern NBA. So it was definitely concerning, but at the same time, as RJ Hampton's improved, he had a 4-steal game the other night. I mean, those are things that are definitely going to turn coaches' eyes. And so with RJ Hampton, I'm not sure what his future is going to hold, but I know for a fact that he's going to definitely have a lot of run going down the stretch this season, especially with Hamidou Diallo being out. And another guy that's going to get a lot of run, a guy who's been getting a lot of run, a guy who's been a topic of conversation ever since he's come to the city, is James Wiseman. And specifically, since being a Piston per Pistons PR, James Wiseman is averaging 12 points, 8 boards, 1 block, and 62 total rebounds, which is the most that he's had in an 8-game span of his career. And listen, the Pistons haven't won yet. James Wiseman has helped this team get better on the defensive end. There have been nights where he's thrived. There have been nights where he's struggled. I think we've seen the ceiling. I think we've seen the floor. And James Wiseman is a young guy that has a lot of potential. And the truth of the matter is, it's been really fun to see what he can bring to this team. And it's been great to see the defensive improvements since he's been a part of this team. And I don't think it's entirely because of James Wiseman. I don't think you can just say, oh, well, James Wiseman inserts into this lineup, therefore their defense is better. I don't know if it's fully that, but I would say that James Wiseman's length and the consistent effort that he brings on that end definitely helps his team. Sure, you can look at moments, you can question, the contest that he made in the final seconds in the Wizards game that allowed Daniel Gafford to get the board. You can look at certain moments where James Wiseman draws an unfavorable foul or gets himself in a situation where he looks like a young player, but unlike in Golden State, Detroit is a situation where right now it is okay to make mistakes. The Pistons can't get farther out of the playoff picture. There's no winning that can get them back into the play-in game at this point. At this point for James Wiseman, there is nothing to lose. And I'm really interested in particular to see what his summer is going to look like, in particular with how the lottery plays out, especially now with the Detroit Pistons more than likely going to secure the number 1 odds for the draft lottery. As of right now, they currently hold them, and really the competition is going to come down between the Houston Rockets, who currently do still have guys like Jalen Green and Jabari Smith Jr. and Alperen Sengun still in the lineup. So that's going for them, or going against them in this case, I should say, since their owner's publicly praying for Victor Wembanyama. What a nut job. And then the San Antonio Spurs, but the Spurs, to Pop's credit, he always keeps that team competitive. Even after they lose 15 straight games, he still makes that team fight extremely hard. So at the end of the day, for the Pistons, the end of this season is about what it's been about since Cade Cunningham went down, and it's all about player development. It's going to be about giving these guys opportunities to audition for spots not only on this team going forward, but on other teams in the NBA. I think guys, like Killian Hayes with the hand injury that he suffered, I don't know if that could be the end of his season, but I certainly don't think he's a player that would afford the luxury of being shut down for the year. I think Killian is a guy that could use as many reps as humanly possible. I think you look down the lineup, I know Eugene Omorie is a guy that they brought in, and they've really liked what they've seen from him so far. And listen, do I know if I just said his last name right? No. Does Dwayne Casey know if he knows how to say his last name right? No. If Eugene scores 20 points by the end of this season, I will learn how to say his name. I promise you that. But otherwise, it's about guys like Eugene, RJ, fighting for their NBA futures. It's guys like Isaiah Livers continuing to showcase why he's been a top 10 player in defensive rating over the last few games, why he's had such an effect, and why the Pistons believe in him so much going forward. I mean, at the end of the day, yes, it's been a really bleak season for the Detroit Pistons, but that light is no longer as far at the end of the tunnel as it was, ladies and gentlemen. The season is done a month from today. That means 2 months is the NBA draft lottery. That means 3 months is the NBA draft itself. We are right around the corner from significant moves, significant transactions, and shifts in the culture and the fiber of the Detroit Pistons. And you best believe when that happens, we are going to be here to break it all down for you. We're going to get all the prominent people in this community to come together and talk about all things Detroit Pistons. And with that, be sure you like this video. Be sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what's coming to the channel. But with that, folks, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will catch you guys next time from Half Court. Be sure you subscribe.